ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is December 1st. We are in the Christmas month. Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We're here until 6 o'clock. We're getting your phone calls and text in. The text line this hour is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We got a lot to get into. Marshall wins against Akron yesterday. That was a big win for the Thundering Herd. I know Akron came in 3-3, but Akron always plays the Herd tough. So Marshall getting the win looked good for the Thundering Herd, so I was really happy with that. We've got all conference nominations here, or nods today. We've got that to get into. Marshall got a few, not many, but a few. After all, Sunbelt's a tougher league. So we'll get into all of that. I want to let you know we're going to talk about Huntington High in the state championship. Can you believe it? Huntington High back again after beating Martinsburg. So we're going to talk about that here in the next few minutes. We've got on the program Eric Little. He calls the games for Parkersburg South. And so we're going to talk to him. We're also going to get your comments in. Again, text line 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. So I think the big news today, we got to touch on first, college football playoff expanding to 12 teams for the 2024 season. Rose Bowl said yes, it's going to offer some flexibility here. So the Rose Bowl was the last roadblock to making this happen. So the first round of the playoff in 2024 will take place on campus sites, matching teams seeded 5 through 12, the week ending Saturday, December 21st. The exact dates are yet to be determined. And then the quarterfinals and semifinals are going to be played in the bowl games that have been rotating as host of the semifinals. Got the Rose, the Sugar, the Orange, Peach, Cotton, and the Fiesta. So every bowl is on board with this. And the championship game is going to be played January 20th, 2025 in Atlanta. And the title game the next year is going to be played January 19th, 2026 in Miami Gardens, Florida. Both are further out than we're used to. Reason they're doing this, $450 million in additional gross revenue for the conferences and the schools that participate. That's why. That's why you're doing this. More money to be had here, more opportunity to make money. That's it. That's the reason. It's not this, hey, we want to include more conferences, we want to include more teams. No, it's let's make some money here. So how do you feel? Marshall maybe has a better shot now? Maybe Marshall could get into this thing. Think Coach Huff has got this Herd ready to go for a run in 2024? I know, let's get past 2022 first, and then let's go past 2023 before we're talking 2024. But you think the Herd's got maybe a run coming up here in a couple of years? Maybe goes undefeated? Maybe wins the Sun Belt? Not only the division, but the championship game? Hoist that trophy up? Maybe the Herd's a top 25 team, going to make this thing, right? That's kind of the dream. That's the idea here. That's the idea, to be among the highest rated. And, of course, win your conference championship. That's definitely going to be a big plus here. Speaking of conference awards, as I alluded to, the all Sun Belt teams are out. Marshall made the list. We're going to get into that a little bit later on, but only 3 representatives in the first team. There was a second team representative, and there were 4 honorable mentions. So we'll get into all of that, but we're going to turn our attention to Huntington High in action Saturday. We're going to have that game for you right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Highlanders back in the state championship. When we come back, we're going to talk to Eric Little. He's going to give us the breakdown on the opponent the Highlanders face when we continue with this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the December 1st edition. We're into the Christmas season here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Paul Swann, your host. Coming up on Saturday, number 1 Parkersburg South will face off against Huntington High in the Class AAA championship game. The Highlanders got there by knocking off the reigning and defending champion Martinsburg. And joining us now to talk a little bit more about the matchup is Eric Little. He covers Parkersburg South. Of course, the way the rules break down, we don't get to actually go up and do play-by-play, but that's okay. It's still been a great season for everyone, and I'm sure it was a fun ride for you up to this point.
Yeah, it's been fun through 13 games. No, we don't get to do play-by-play, but I wish we did. 14th game would be great to do, but it's a special season to document either way, and certainly happy for the people involved that you've covered for a quarter of a year now at this point.
Did you think it would be Huntington when you saw across the way it was going to be Huntington versus Martinsburg? Were you anticipating Huntington, or did you think, okay, it's going to be Martinsburg, it's always Martinsburg?
Well, I think Martinsburg's always a team in the back of your mind in Class AAA, kind of like how Wheeling Central is in Class A. No matter where they are in the bracket, you're always kind of cognizant of them and the fact that you might see them down the road. But we've been hearing whispers all season long about Martinsburg or about Huntington and how for real they were. And the name Gavin Lacko has come up here a number of times, and we've seen him in other sports. He's a very good athlete, and Billy Seal's reputation at this point is statewide for what he's done and the way he's conducted the program at Huntington, now 3 Super Sixes for the Highlanders. So it's definitely not a surprise. It might not be the team many people expected, but again, what I've been saying to people all week, maybe it's not Martinsburg, but this is a team that beat Martinsburg, so you definitely can't be on ease when it comes to taking on the Highlanders.
Parkersburg South and Huntington pretty much neck to neck all season long when it came to the rankings, so it seems fitting that both teams are going to be in the Class AAA championship game. What's the challenge for the Highlanders when it comes to Parkersburg South? What should fans look out for when they're watching this game? Who are some of the standouts all season long?
I think Huntington's going to see a quarterback like, in Robert Shockey, like what you've been seeing all season long with Huntington's quarterback. Shockey has thrown for 35 touchdowns this season, almost 3,000 yards. He also is a potent threat running the ball. He's run for over 1,100 yards and 16 scores. He can call his own number. He's got a whole cadre of weapons out wide. Cyrus Trawl, maybe one of the most athletic players in the state, 1,100 receiving yards for him, 78 grabs, 19 touchdowns. Gage Wright in the backfield has scored 29 times on the ground, and that includes 11 touchdowns in his last 4 games, 11 rushing touchdowns. But again, Trawl leads that receiving corps. Got Turner Garrettson, Mason Reams, and Tristan Walker. Trawl's a dynamite athlete. He's got 25 total touchdowns. He scores on special teams. He can score on defense. He leads the team with 8 picks this season. So I think it's a multi-talented, multi-pronged threat. I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges. And again, this is very similar to what you saw with Martinsburg, because they've got a lot of athletes that are plug and play, that when they touch the ball, they can score from about anywhere. And Parkersburg South has a very similar threat.
Joining us on the program, he is one of the voices you hear if you go up and down the radio dial to listen to high school football on a Friday night. Eric Little's with us, and, of course, Huntington taking on Parkersburg South. We've got the game for you here on Saturday on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930, and we're looking forward to it. It's one of these matchups that I like from a standpoint other than it's not Martinsburg. So thankfully it's not Martinsburg once again in the title game. So automatically I like the matchup. But over the years, it feels like Huntington, the Huntington area, the Parkersburg area, sort of this back and forth rivalry between all the athletic programs here. And I know maybe Parkersburg's the first name that comes to mind over the years, but really, you can't overlook what Parkersburg South has done over the years, and, of course, getting into the championship games just proof of that.
Yeah, Parkersburg South, in a lot of other sports, has been a perennial in the postseason, the state tournaments. You look at boys and girls basketball for a long time, and I know Parkersburg South's girls soccer team was there this year. And under head coach Nathan Tanner of the Patriots football program, really trying to make November and even December football a regular thing. Making it a regular thing to practice on Thanksgiving has been a bit of a priority, too. For Tanner, this is his 4th season, so this senior class is the first class that's had him all 4 years. They've gone to 2 state semifinals and now one Super Six, and they made the playoffs 3 of 4 years, and the program's made the playoffs 4 of the last 5. So beginning to become a perennial name in Class AAA, and that's certainly the standard that Parkersburg South would like to achieve and the goal going forward.
How important has this team been to the community, not just over the last few years, but definitely this season?
I think it's been a very integral part of this community. We had 6 regular season games this season, and you had the 3 playoff games where the Patriots hosted. They were home 9 times out of 13 games, and that included the game against Parkersburg High School in late October that saw 7,000 people, and that's a record crowd for the Erickson All Sports facility. Especially when the weather was good early in the season, the crowds were strong. We had really terrible weather the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but for the semifinal, people came out, and that was a game that aired against, or that was going on against the WVU season finale. It was a Saturday afternoon. It was Thanksgiving weekend. There's a billion other things people could have been doing, but the crowd was very, very strong. So this is a community that gets very much behind its young people. This is a community where they take pride in the S on the side of the helmet. And so I think the last person out of the South Side on Saturday better turn off the lights.
I was going to ask you, how many people do you think are going to be making the trip to Wheeling? I'm not sure how many from Huntington is going to be heading up. I'm sure it's going to be a huge crowd, but this is probably going to be an electric atmosphere because, again, it's not Martinsburg, so it's not been there, done that. It really, you can't just put a finger on one school and say, okay, they're the favorite, because you can say Huntington's the favorite. You can say Parkersburg South's the favorite. I think it's going to come down to which team has the ball last, probably.
Yeah, that and whoever makes whoever's defense creates the most takeaways, I really think is going to come down to that as well. But I think you're right. For Martinsburg going into Super 6, there definitely was that feeling of been there, done that. And so I think their crowds diminished a little bit as they went on with their run. So you got two fan bases. I mean, even though Huntington's been there, this is now the 3rd time under Billy Seals, I think you'll still see a strong crowd. And I think for Parkersburg South, it's a very novel thing for the Patriots to be playing for a state championship. They haven't been to the Super 6 in 19 years. So I think this is going to be a different year for the Super 6 in general. A lot of times the Class AA or the Class A game is the one that gets the biggest crowd, especially in Class A, because there's been a lot of Ohio Valley schools, a lot of schools that have not been from far away and or are making rare appearances, like Ritchie County last year, St. Mary's a few times. They would send a lot of people, practically the whole town. And so you get that in Class A. But I think in Class AAA, these are 2 communities. And I think that's the difference here. These are 2 communities that haven't been in these shoes very often. I think we're going to see a good game. I think we're going to see a big crowd. I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be an offensive show. And it's going to be whoever cracks first, whoever makes the first mistake, whoever gets outside of what they normally do, and whoever can force that in their opponent. I think that's just going to have the advantage.
I'm not so sure about the Parkersburg South side, but I know Billy Seals, he personally calls the defense. That is his baby. So maybe 7-6. That's what we're going to see. That's going to be the game, a 7-6 game. And
after a quarter.
Yeah, 7-6. Yeah, the defenses are going to rule the day here. You know, you have high potent offenses. I think we're going to get a lockdown from both teams. You know, I know how much they love defense on the hilltop for Huntington, and it seems at Parkersburg South you can't overlook that defense as well. So this should be fun. I hope we have more offense. I'm sure the coordinators would love to see nothing but, 3 and outs. I mean, 7-0 would probably make one of the coaches happy.
Oh yeah, it'll make the winning coach happy,
right?
For sure.
Right.
But I think you're going to see a game that's not in the 40s. I think you're going to see a game that's not in the single digits. I think you're probably going to see like a 28-24 kind of score, to be honest with you. And Parkersburg South's got a field goal kicker, Micaiah Jones. He's 5 of 8 this season. 2 of those makes are in the postseason. So that's a weapon that's been developing over time, and he even hit in the semifinal game as well. So I think you're going to see both teams have successful moments on offense, and both teams are going to get their stops as well. My
guest is Eric Little. He calls all the Parkersburg South games for the regular season. Unfortunately, not doing the championship game, I know. Still, it's going to be a fun game, a great ride so far. I hope it's a great game for both squads, no matter the winner. I think both teams deserve to be there, and both should be proud. And hopefully we get a great game on Saturday.
Yeah, I think so. These are 2 classy programs. These are 2 programs that do it the right way. I know that that's kind of what's been said about Billy Seals and Huntington for a long time, really making a name for himself, not just for the winning, but just for how things are getting done at Huntington High School. I mean, these 2 teams last played in the regular season back in 2019, which is Nate Tanner's first year at Parkersburg South. So it's not all that ancient history that these teams, have seen each other. It's not in the terribly distant past. So there's some history here, and these are two communities, two schools that are very prideful schools, and I think they're going to put together a good effort on Saturday.
Looking forward to it. Hey, thanks for doing this. We'll do it again soon. We got to get Huntington and Parkersburg South back on each other's schedule. We got to do this more.
Or we can just talk about whatever. I mean, if there's a TV commercial you want to talk about, if there's another sporting event you want to talk about, pop culture, hey, hit me up. Let me know. We'll do this, and we can go in depth.
All right, Eric. Okay, we got your number. You know what? We'll put you on. Don't tempt me. There will be days. Hey, Eric. Hey, what'd you watch last night? That'll be the show. Don't tempt me. It's going to happen.
I watched the DVR of the History Channel. It was The Curse of Oak Island, and we're going to lose all your listeners. I'll talk about PBS American Experience, and your listeners are going to be gone.
Eric, good talking to you. Have a great weekend, and we'll do it again soon, I promise.
Hey, thanks. Take care.
That's Eric Little. If you got a favorite TV show, Eric will break it down for us. I like that. I like that a lot. He's definitely on the short list to come back. We got more coming up, including your phone calls and texts. Let's get that text line fired up right now. It is turned on. It is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up on this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the December 1st edition of The Drive at ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We're here until 6 o'clock. We'll get the text line going right now at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Conference awards coming out today. No specialty awards awarded to anyone from the Thundering Herd, but Marshall does have some representation, and you got to start with the first team offense. Kalen Laburn, Marshall on the all Sun Belt first team. If you're going to have a running back on your first team in the Sun Belt, it's Kalen Laburn. And that's it for the offense, though. Not really much offensive representation here for the Thundering Herd. All Sun Belt first team defense, you've got two representatives, Owen Porter and Micah Abraham. And that's it. You have to go to the second team to find anyone from the defense, and that's Stephen Gilmore. So he's second team all defense. And then there's no third team representation. It's just honorable mentions for Marshall. Corey Gamage, Kobe Cumberlander, Eli Neal, and Andre Sam. Now, as a unit, that Marshall defense was stout as a unit. Individually, though, maybe not those standout performances compared to statistically some of the other teams. As a unit, though, I would take Marshall's defense over anyone in this conference right now. But you get two on the first team, you get one on the second team, and then you get some honorable mentions. That's it. And I think you're going to see that for a while because, again, this is a different league. It's a bigger conference, obviously. You have great, I think top to bottom, you have some great coaches here. You have some great standout performers, and it was not going to be the Marshall show. But at the same time, the only thing you really care about at this point is where are you going for the bowl and will you win it? That's what you care about right now. These are great. Individual awards are fantastic. I love individual awards. I would love to win all the individual awards. But the fact that some Herd players were getting recognized is good. That means, you got some work to do. And I don't know how this is basically from coaches and some select members of the media. Mostly coaches, again, select members of the media. How many of those West team coaches really know the Herd? How many? If you're looking at who stands out, if you haven't faced Marshall yet, you've heard, but coaches are week to week, they're focusing on the opponent. And so Troy knows about Marshall, Louisiana knows about Marshall, and then it's the East Division teams that know about Marshall. And of course, Marshall did not win the East Division. Marshall beat every team in the East Division except Coastal Carolina, but Marshall also has 2 losses against Troy and Louisiana. So unfortunately, Marshall did not win the East Division, not going to participate in the conference championship game. But Marshall was one of a few teams that had representation, multiple representation in the first, and I'll tell you what, it's better than I thought, and it's not as good as I thought at the same time. Does that make sense? I couldn't really figure out who else would be first team offense for Marshall. And it's not a slight on anyone. It's just, okay, I'm trying to figure out who would get a nod. And I thought I would have moved Kobe Cumberlander up a little bit. I might have moved him up a little bit just because I thought that he was out there all season making things happen. I thought he might have warranted minimum a third team. Not my list. I don't vote. I don't pick. The good news is, though, Marshall's got an opportunity now to finish the season on a high note, get the bowl bid sooner than later, I hope. We'll get that taken care of after all the conference championship games are done. We'll see where the Thundering Herd is going to go. I'm pulling for Myrtle. I'm pulling for Myrtle right now. I want to see Myrtle Beach. I've heard so many different picks. I don't want Ohio in a bowl game, and it's not because I don't like Ohio. It's just I don't want Ohio in the bowl game. I've been there, done that. I've seen Ohio. That's a regular season game. I don't want to see Marshall and Ohio in I don't want to see Marshall in a MAC school in a bowl game. I just don't. It doesn't excite me. Now, granted, you're talking to the guy who's really not excited by the bowls to begin with. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you. I'm not that excited for the bowls. To look at all the matchups and think, okay, that's great. I wouldn't pay money for that matchup if I didn't. No, that doesn't interest me. It's not. The playoff has more interest to me. The playoff has more interest for me than the bowls ever did. And I would hope, it's not going to happen because ESPN owns so many bowls, but I would hope we would have one day an expanded playoff. We've got 12. When can we get to 16? Can we get to 16 sooner than later? Do we go past 16? And I really believe the way to make this work is conference champions, and then the rest are at-large bids. Conference champions, at-large bids. Because if you're the number 2 team in a conference, maybe you can make a case for yourself to be in the playoff as an at-large. If you're the number 3 team, because where do we cut the line off here? Say, okay, lost in a championship game, but it was close. Probably an at-large. Ohio State, at-large, right? Didn't get to the championship game. Obviously better than the opponent in the championship game that it would have faced. Okay, at large, Ohio State. I can see it. You don't necessarily, as far as I'm concerned, you don't necessarily need to be the other team in the championship game because we've seen some championship games where, okay, there's one clear favorite and the other team just lucky to get in. And really the best 2 teams in the conference are on one side or the other. So do you really take a second team based on the loser of the championship game? Yeah, there's going to be some questions here how these things are going to be seeded. But I would like to see 16 teams eventually. Now that offers up some problems. Got to start the season earlier, right? Season's going to have to start early eventually, or we're going to go on deep into this thing. We're going to be deep into this thing already. You start the season early. Do you end the regular season early? Because you got to play 12 games. Got to play 12 regular season games. Then you're going to have your championship game. So that's 13. And then you've got the 12-team format now. If you expand the 16, once we get through 12 a few times and you go to 16, are you going to have to make allowances for that? Do you make the schedule different? Do you start practice sooner, which I'm sure coaches would be okay with that? Or do you start the regular season earlier, try to condense the preseason prep? I think you can figure it out, but at the same time, you're going to have a lot of differing factors here. I mean, it works at the 1AA level, the football championship subdivision. It works there. It seems to be a model you could look at, but hey, why is this conference getting 2 teams in and we're getting 1? If you're the SEC, okay, hey, maybe we deserve 3 teams in this thing. Maybe you're the Big 12, like, hey, we deserve 3 teams in this thing. The Big 10, hey, definitely, we deserve 3 teams in this thing. So the fact we got to 12, that's amazing in itself. The fact we got to 12. I would hope to see 16, but at the same time, I also want to see the bowls repurposed in a different way. And honestly, this is going to make the bowls a little less relevant to a degree. Because what are we going to be talking about? 12-team playoff in 2024. What are we going to be focusing on? This 12-team playoff. Not the handful of bowls that are going to be played before this thing. We're going to focus on this thing, number 5 through 12, starting the week ending Saturday, December 21st, 2024. What do we got here? We got a system that's going to coexist with bowl games, playoffs. Bowl games, playoffs. And are you going to see bowl games go up against the playoffs? I wouldn't. I wouldn't go anywhere near this thing. If I'm an opposing bowl, no, I'm not going anything. I'm not nowhere near this thing. I would probably have my bowl would be prior to this. Because once you get into this, do we care? I'm going to leave it to you. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up on this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
It's our final segment of today's edition of The Drive at ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We have football action tomorrow. We've got action on Saturday. Saturday, we got Huntington and Parkersburg South. That's going to be right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Friday morning, 10 a.m., tune in to Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. We've got the Division 5 championship. Ironton taking on Canfield South Range. And we've got all the play-by-play action coming up. And that is on Friday, 10 a.m. You can stream online, catsports933.com. You can download the app. Listen to the radio. As the Fighting Tigers looking for a state championship. Of course, Highlanders on Saturday. So all your high school football action right here across the Kindred Communication family of stations. Speaking of the Huntington Highlanders, here's the game plan for the Highlanders. 9:35 a.m. tomorrow. Students and staff are going to line the halls. Cheerleaders are going to lead the team through the school and out the front door onto the buses. So now they're going to be on the buses. As they board the buses, the band's going to play. It's going to be a majestic send-off, right? So you can go out, and they're going to be well wishes from the public. You're invited. You can gather in the parking lot for the send-off. Get them going. Get them up the Wheeling. But before they leave. So we're starting at 9:35 a.m. tomorrow at the school. Then they're going to make visits at Huntington Middle School, Huntington East Middle School, and the Cabell County Career Technology Center. And then we're going to get them up to Wheeling. I know a lot of the volunteers and the families and others, boosters, have been hard at work putting together the travel kits for the Highlanders. I've seen some of the pictures, and I mean, there's nothing more important than a fresh toothbrush. Let me tell you right now, you travel, you have to have a fresh toothbrush. You need it. I mean, you get a fresh toothbrush. That's the most important thing next to the clothing. It might be the more important thing. Fresh toothpaste, toothbrush, clothing. Those are the important things. Then, of course, the snack packs. You got to have the snack packs. Those are big things. So I've seen some of the photos today. The kids are being taken care of, and that's good. That makes me happy. So kickoff is set for noon. We got it for you on Saturday right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And, of course, on our stream, that is live at WRVC.com. Looking forward to it as the Highlanders are in action one final time this season to take on Parkersburg South and hopefully win a state championship. And then, of course, if they win the state championship, parade. Huntington loves a parade. So parade tomorrow, of course, in Huntington. And then you can have a parade here in like a week or so. After they win the championship, you can have like a championship parade for the Highlanders. Yeah, parades for everything else in Huntington. Why not a championship parade for the football team? If it doesn't happen, we protest City Hall. If it does not happen, we protest City Hall. So first Highlanders are going to win, and then we have a parade with Billy Seals as the Grand Marshal. I like it. It's my idea. I like it. All right, let's get your text in, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Having some fun with you on a Thursday here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I mean, why not? We've had a couple of good days going so far. The Herd with the victory against the Zips, going back to the MAC, taking on the Bobcats on Saturday, and we'll have that game for you as well. So right after the state championship game, we'll have that game for you here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930 between the Herd and the Bobcats. But last night, Tavion Kinsey looked good. His fifth 20-point game of the season. He shot 50%, 9 of 18, so he looked pretty good out there. Marshall started off quick 7-0 run. Had a couple of runs in that second half, a 10-0 run, an 8-0 run. I thought Akron was a lot better in the second half. Very physical. I thought Marshall was able to match that physical nature, was not intimidated by it. I thought Marshall was able to weather storms from Akron, didn't let Akron get too far into runs. Thundering Herd, I thought looked good. No complaints. Marshall looked good. Andrew Taylor had a double-double. His first of the season, 7th of his career, had 16 points and 10 rebounds and 6 assists. 7 of his 19 attempts from the field led to that. I thought Camden Kerfman looked good. He was better from the three-point line. 5 of 11, had 15 points. I'd like to see more from Micah Hanlogden. He had 9 rebounds. He was out there making things happen, rejected a career-high 6 shots. And the big key for Marshall, shutting down Xavier Castaneda. He was averaging over 20 points a game, and he had 4 points. He was 1 of 13 from the field. I don't think we talked about that much yesterday. They shut him down. He was a big gun for them, and he got shut down. So team looked good. I thought the Herd handled it well. Next up, taking on the Bobcats. That game should be played every single year. Need to make that happen. Every single year, Marshall needs to be playing Ohio. I don't want a 2-game series I want home and then on the road the following year. I want 1 game every year. Go up to Athens Convocation Center, a fantastic venue for basketball, by the way. A fantastic venue. Say what you will. You go to Athens to watch a basketball game, it's a fantastic venue. It's just this nice campus tucked away, and you get there and you're like, okay, this is nice. So much respect to Ohio and the basketball team, but I want to go every other year. Marshall, home 1 year, on the road the next. Let's get some excitement for this series. Again, I know this isn't Ohio's biggest rival, but Marshall needs rivals on the basketball court. Marshall and Morehead State, I would continue that. I would do Marshall, Ohio. Those would be 2 that I have to have those games every year on my schedule. Most definitely. Bobcats, the Eagles, have those 2 on the schedule. And if you want to schedule 1 Conference USA school yearly, I could be talked into Western Kentucky, maybe. I could be talked into that. So you have your major rival from the MAC, Ohio. You have Morehead State, makes perfect sense. You have Western Kentucky, do that. Those would be my 3. You got to have those on the schedule every year. And then I would look at, okay, let's just focus on maybe 1 team yearly in West Virginia. I'd play Charleston. I'd lock them in every year. Okay, Charleston, Ohio, Morehead State, Western Kentucky. If you can convince me otherwise of the Conference USA team, I will change my mind if you can convince me. However, those are my schools. Those are my schools. Texter wrote in just now and said that, or asked, does anyone know why we stopped doing the Thunderclap? I think the best thing to do is get that thing going organically. I remember when it was at its heyday, you'd have the board cue the fans. Like, ready, set, go. And you would have the We Are Marshall back and forth. You'd have that on the scoreboard. You'd have the fans doing the Thunderclap. I don't know if that could be worked back into the script. Bring it up. This athletic director Christian Spears, is he still doing the fan thing? I know you got some of his committees that he's formed. Isn't there that fan advisory? That's still around, right? Someone to bring that up. Get that directly in front of him. Like, hey, we need to see more of this. This was a cool thing. Every time, I mean, then again, Marshall was scoring a lot of points. So every time Marshall scored, you would see fans do the thunderclap, and it would get up there, 7, 14, 21. It was good for health. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.